Greetings and welcome to this week's episode of the Pixel Crashers podcast, a podcast where we discuss our thoughts on gaming news. I am Angelus de Mortiel, together with Kev the Gamer.
I'm on that road to 1,000 subs, baby.
Something like that. And Major Stupidity's not here, and we're also joined by Deathshroud09.
Kev's almost caught up to me on subs.
Where am I getting that echo from?
Echo!
Oh, I see now.
Did you forget to mute something?
Yes, I did. So congratulations, everybody. You got to hear the intro once again because reasons.
You know what
Anyway,
they say? The only thing better than one intro is two intros.
it's two intros. I'm hoping that we're actually online with YouTube. It's actually
Yes,
not.
I'm looking at a YouTube right now.
Okay, so it is actually showing up on YouTube.
We are good.
Yeah, because my view on it was saying, nope, you're not online.
Yeah, I had to click a little button and then it showed us. We're about 45 seconds behind on YouTube, but we're good.
Anyway, so anybody who's watching on YouTube and we're a 45-second delay, apologize. It happens. In any case, though, so games have been played this week by Kev, as I understand. He decided to get away from the casual carousel, as I understand.
Casual carousel? What you talking about?
Your casual experience in gaming. You're now getting into the strategy games.
Oh no, I played XCOM today. Now we're not going to talk about. I've been playing COD all week. The map packs came out, so I've been smashing on kids with no thumbs after not touching the game for a month.
Casual carousel.
Hey, some of these people play games hardcore.
I guess
I can't call somebody playing Call of Duty a casual if they put in 30 hours a weekend, and there are people who do it.
Oh no, it's honestly it's a pretty honestly you can get there's a lot of skill involved in that. I won't deny the skill that's involved in Call of Duty. I will, however, note that it is it does lack a certain amount of tactics that I tend to enjoy out of a shooter.
Yeah, you like Siege, and Siege is just too slow for me.
I mean, sometimes there's definitely an adrenaline rush that comes in with a twitch, a very twitchy arcade shooter.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the things that I liked about Team SWAT in Halo, was that it was very speed and dexterity based, and it tended to be very, very fast. At least the way I played it.
Yep.
So.
Oh yeah, SWAT can be very fast. I'm not that into SWAT, but yeah, it can be super fast if you let it.
That's mostly because he just wasn't that good at it.
No, just didn't interest me.
Hear the trash talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that hurts right here.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty good at SWAT too. I think that was my best.
I played it like twice. I decided it wasn't for me.
SWAT and Capture the Flag were my two favorite things.
Yeah, I like Slayer. I love Slayer.
Well, there's not a whole lot of difference there. Let's be honest. It's just shields or no shields. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that was the big thing that I didn't like about it. There were no shields. I feel like with Slayer, because you have the shields, you can jump, you can respond.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing, is that there's a certain tactics in both of them, honestly. That's the way I see it, is that there was time to kill things that you had to account for whenever you're playing Slayer, that you didn't on whenever you're playing SWAT. SWAT was pretty much, if you got a good shot at the guy, he was done. But that wasn't the case with Team Slayer, or whenever you're playing Slayer. Mm-hmm. You would take several shots, and you had to wear guys down, dodge around, move around, wear them down a little bit more, and just keep that shield recharge from getting back up.
Mm-hmm.
Different.
Yeah, I wish that wasn't the case on the newer ones, like Halo 5. The time to kill, it doesn't feel like the older ones when I played the Master Chief Collection.
That's kind of unfortunate, but that is.
It really depends, right? In terms, I feel like the power weapon saturation has been changed in the newer ones. In the older games, it felt like the advantage of a power weapon, quote unquote, in the older Halo games was much larger than it is in the newer games. The gap between the base weapons and the power weapons has gotten smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that's probably what that feeling comes from is so that gap is much smaller. Yeah, in the older Halo games, the base weapons took, unless you were using a pistol, took much longer than.
That pistol though, that has been the single most controversial weapon in the history of Halo. Starting off in the first game as being like the God gun.
You
The
know,
sniper rifle,
in
basically.
Halo 3 it was actually, a lot of people placed it as like less than the assault rifle in terms of effectiveness, but I found that using it was one of the most fun things I've ever done in that game. In Halo 3, it was like dual wielding pistols and just running around and killing people with it. Especially in terms of like base weapons, because it had a larger effective range than the assault rifle if you
Hmm.
used it correctly. So you had a guy that would be running directly at you with an assault rifle, and you could backpedal away from him and fire into his head, and you would win that fight.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And that was one of the things that was very. That's actually not even just a Halo 3 thing. That's been a good tactic with the pistol for a while. Is you, like, I just noticed you had a lot better capability for maneuvering whenever you're
Right.
using the pistol.
I know when I was playing 5, the weapon was the my favorite weapon was the SMG. Like once I figured out, what I could do with that SMG.
I tell you what,
Not that Spartan laser though.
It does shot
in
laser.
some of the
Nobody
Halo
does.
games, I don't know what it is, but Halo has a way of making the SMG just feel very, very satisfying. Like
Yeah, it is.
maybe not the most effective, but just using it is a lot of fun.
Oh, it was very effective in
Like
5.
the Halo
That
the
was my go-to
ODST
gun.
the ODST suppressed SMG.
Hmm.
That thing was amazing. It was so much fun to use. Which I'm a huge ODST fan. I feel that game is extraordinarily underappreciated.
It's the one game that didn't have Master Chief in it. That's
Reach.
Oh yeah, I should say it's the one game that didn't have Spartans in it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the game just had this aesthetic, and the music and the feeling of it was so like different from the normal Halo game, but it still had a little bit of that Halo appeal to it.
Mm.
And I'm a huge fan of that game. I
I
really
never got
enjoyed
into
it.
the multiplayer of ODST or Reach really. Like
That's not
I'm big on
really.
the campaigns, but
Honestly, a lot of people really thought Reach was probably one of the pinnacle multiplayer experiences compared to 4. They preferred Reach, I guess.
yeah, I heard
Um,
that a lot.
I heard that
As
a
4
lot.
was my
So
first Halo, so
I never played Reach or 4. I played through 3, and I was like, you know what, I'm good.
yeah, I don't think you would have
Yeah,
liked.
three's
I
good.
think if you liked that original trilogy, you probably wouldn't have messed with 4 too hard.
I know the
Yeah.
story for 4. I let's put it this way: I got bored and watched the game video of it because
Right.
honestly,
Yeah, four
I
had a
kind of
terrible campaign. Four
yeah.
four had an atrocious campaign.
I
It was
love the campaign in 4. Actually, it's actually my favorite campaign of the whole
Well,
series.
oh no, I
well,
hated it.
my thing was
A lot of people
essentially
did.
I like the lore implications of the game, but honestly, Halo 1 by far is the best story of them all because it's like you start off sci-fi shooter. It's, humans fighting desperately against these aliens. This is your last ditch effort. It sounds like it's gonna be, your same old like sci-fi shooter shoot 'em up game where you have the big bulky marine dude. Yeah, I'm a man. And then it turns into a horror game, and you're like, what the fuck?
Like
Morty.
Gears 1
I,
did that really
Yeah,
good too.
I
Gears 1 was
feel
great for that too. Yeah.
I feel like Halo, like that part of Halo, could have been explored much more, and it could have been a very, very like it could have made an amazing set of games if they had
Like,
explored that more rather than going for the mass appeal
Hmm.
shooter section of it. I think that would have been really good. Like exploring Gravemind more and just
yeah,
going
because
further
Gravemind
into
just
that.
kind of like I don't know about Halo 5. I don't know the story for that yet, but as far as I'm aware, up to Halo 4, just like he just kind of dropped off the face of the earth after he was in Halo 3, and I think that's pretty much it.
Well, he was deactivated,
Oh yeah, that's
and
right. Yeah.
Cortana brought him back at the beginning of 4,
Mm.
and then Cortana went insane, and you basically spent all of 5 figuring out why.
She went rampant, and
Yeah, but that's basically insanity.
like okay, so the lore backstory that I'm aware of with Halo is that usually AIs in that universe were only kept online for a couple of years.
Yeah, about 7.
Yeah, it's 7 years, and that's under normal operating conditions. They would be decommissioned in 7 years because the amount of knowledge they would collect would cause them to go what they called rampant. In other words, just go crazy. You got to remember, in the very first game, what did Cortana do? She uploaded herself into the Halo computer, which was just like information overload. So much stuff crammed into her all at once. That shortened that lifespan to like 7 years down to 6 months easily.
Yeah,
Right.
And she kept going after that.
And at the point of Halo 4, it was like 10 years.
Yeah,
And then all of the all of the information collecting that Chief had done, all the times that she was inserted into
Alien.
Forerunner structures and Covenant ships, databases,
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, she definitely was should not have been lasting as long as she did.
No, she didn't.
She definitely kicked it off. But in any case, though, Halo, fun times. So
Yeah.
Travis, done anything new this week
Um,
with Russian contraband?
yeah, Russian contraband type stuff.
In case
Uh,
anybody's wondering, Travis is now in black market arms trade. So
Yes.
We're also part of the Russian mob, so don't piss them off.
yeah,
No,
he's
it's
part of
okay.
the Bratva now.
Yeah, right. No, I played a little bit more Terraria on my Xbox with my sister earlier on this week, and I think that's about it. I've been really focusing on work lately and had to
Yeah.
put off my computer building aspirations for
Again?
now. Yeah, again.
Yeah,
Hey,
I mean, we're not going to talk about work. It's midterms, bro. I
Hey.
just took one of my midterms this morning. I have another one to take, and I'm like, it's kicking my ass.
Yeah, I'm right there with you though, Travis. Like literally, work barely has time. I barely have time to do much gaming at all, and
Right.
and then on top of that, yeah, I've had to put off upgrading my computer for a while now. I think like probably about 2 years.
Yeah.
But in
Now,
any case,
can you just upgrade? Because you just had that i3 in there.
I'm building.
Is it 1150?
Huh? Yeah, it's 1150, but I'm actually building a new computer.
Yeah, I know. I was about to say, wouldn't it be easier just to upgrade just to a new CPU and graphics
Just
card?
because I'm still up in the air, and Zyphon would debate with me on the pros and cons of this, but I'm debating on whether or not I'm going to be doing whether or not I'm going to build it on the 1150 platform or the 1150 one.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I'm always gonna side for 1150 because the 1151 you don't see a lot of improvements.
Actually,
Not for games anyway, I should say.
I'm talking about future proofing here, so I'll real quick go through the major ones on there. First of all, PCIe gets a major upgrade. It has double the throughput, meaning that normally when you put in multiple graphics cards in there, right, you have 16 lane bus for the PCIe. So if you have one card in there, it's got the full 16 lanes. Put in 2 cards, each one has 8. Put in 3, it's 844. Put in 4 of them, 4444. Right? So it just divvies up those 16. So 1151 doubles that throughput. So now it has 32 instead. The one card runs at 32, which is, by the way, no card even touches that bandwidth. So it really only benefits you if you start getting into crazy SLI or Crossfire configurations. Like if you got 4-way Crossfire SLI, you're doing 8 lanes. So you have because actually when you do 4-way normally, those 4 lanes is not enough. You actually end up bottlenecking your performance a lot.
Right, because the CPU.
Well, no, because they can't communicate with the CPU fast enough, because you only have, think of it like a highway. You have so much traffic on that 8-lane highway. Imagine shunting all 8 lanes down into 4. Now you're bottlenecking even worse, right? That's the idea behind it.
Here I was thinking they were just running faster than the CPU.
No. I mean, you can get things which the GPU runs faster than the CPU, but not as much. The other thing on there, DDR4 RAM, right now, not a huge performance. because they're still kind of new out there. It's still a little bit more expensive. But in the future, that's obviously the new standard. So upgrading RAM in the future or whatever, that's going to be your better one. Right now, honestly, it's just more expensive for not a whole lot of performance difference.
Yep, that's kind of my argument.
People say like, oh yeah, but you get 1600 megahertz RAM for 1150, and then 1151 you get 2133 or 2400. I'm like, yes, and you didn't bother to look at the cast latency, did you? Bunch of nerd talk there. Point is that it's got higher bandwidth but higher latency as well. So
I just tuned out for all of that.
Yeah.
Just know Skyjack is amazing.
Yeah, but the last bit on there, and this is the most important one, is the fact that 1151 boards, at least middle end ones, support the USB 3.1 Type C connectors on there. And there's Zyphon in with his comment on the. I knew it was coming.
Oh yeah, we knew it was coming like clockwork. I was just sitting there like,
no Zyphon on there. It depends on your motherboard. Is it 28? I thought it was 32 on there, whereas the X99 chipset runs 40. That's I'm pretty certain I was reading that it actually has 32. But in any case, yeah. So I'm still up in the air. I don't know which one I'm going to be doing. So that's the key on there. The graphics card, I know that I'm going to be getting something equivalent to like an 80 series NVIDIA card, or like a 390X, something like that. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Zyphon
in the chat.
Gonna try to go on here about this anyway. Yeah. So this week though, I actually have played some games. Yeah, I play my normal Warframe and whatnot for the limited time early in the week that I could. But this on Saturday, I actually live streamed some Divinity Original Sin. I hadn't actually touched the game since they upgraded to the Enhanced Edition that upgraded a lot to the game. Like, it's completely voice acted now, which is actually awesome. But I streamed that for a couple hours, got myself in there, and just made a complete fool of myself because you play these Dragon Age RPGs for so long, and you're just like, rush into the battle, kill things quickly. You can't do that on Divinity. You get wrecked. By the way, Kev, you died. I don't know if you caught any of the comments on it, but so I made characters that were Joe and Kev. Joe is the little he's the stubborn and an angry rogue, and you were he was the angry and defiant rogue. Wants to kick everybody to the curb type of thing. Only look out for himself, and he hates the man. He wants to stick it to the man constantly.
Well, I mean, I understand Joe usually does want to stick it to the man.
Yeah, and then Kev is the stubborn, won't listen to anybody else because he knows he's right. And of course it doesn't hurt that you're a giant muscular black guy with a huge sword. so he's right, and he's gonna show you he's right by chopping off your head.
Well, I mean, that's what I would do if I was in a video game. I always used to tell people, if I could be any comic book character, I'd be Raphael from the Ninja Turtles.
Right.
This big angry ass turtle.
But yeah, so I was playing a bunch of that. You died, by the way. Joe had to teabag you and then pick you back up.
He would.
Because he couldn't just let it happen. Of course, that fight you died in, he started. So I should throw that out there because I ran in these two drunk guards, and then they were more or less like, "Oh, we want to take you to the wizard." And Kev, being the stubborn, sensible one, was like, "Just take us to the guard. I don't care. Just take us there." And then Joe popped in and was like, "I think we should kill these guys." And then so there's this little paper, scissors, rock thing that you have to go through, who wins the argument. And Joe apparently, I'm pretty certain he cheated.
Wouldn't surprise me. Joe likes his mods.
Yes. But yeah, so that was what I did on Saturday. That was kind of entertaining. But that was my difference in gaming. It's actually kind of a fun CRPG on there. A lot of
I should talk about how I made Joe an XCOM, and he had one fucking job, and he got the whole team wiped.
That's okay. He made you an XCOM too, and you got wrecked. whereas Travis was apparently the boss,
Doing work, man. Doing work.
hitting 28% shots on enemies behind heavy cover.
Oh yeah.
Don't
See,
So
even
good.
know.
As
yeah,
a
see,
medic.
my
Yeah.
whole squad wiped. I was the sniper. I was a badass sniper too.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was that, and Joe has been on XCOM 2. That's why he couldn't join us tonight, guys, is because he didn't like you. He wanted to play XCOM 2 instead.
He claims I'm sick.
Yeah, he said he was sick and stuff, which is why tonight, down right below me here, you will notice that we've been joined by none other than Deadpool.
Hi, Deadpool.
He's decided not to say anything to us though because he thinks that being on a podcast is stupid.
It's for casuals.
Yeah. In any case, that's gonna be a great movie coming out this coming week here. Awesome. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get moving on to our first story here, because we just can't seem to stop talking about this damn game. This has become the Division podcast, I guess. So this week, the Division story comes in the flavor of monthly events that for those that purchase the season pass. And kind of my question to you guys is this adding value to the season pass, or is this just dividing the player base?
So do we step in for Joe now and say it's dividing the player base?
I mean,
I think it is.
You think it is?
I wholeheartedly think it is. And I think not only that, it pisses off the people who didn't buy it. Like, they just wanted to buy the base game, get most of the stuff that's in there. Now, I understand maybe if you're going to give them extra maps and stuff, but stuff like, oh yeah, season pass exclusive raids. Like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like dedicating your business model to something that's going to split your player base rather quickly is something that is short-sighted and is likely to kill off many a video game in recent, in these coming years.
Mm-hmm. So why don't one of you guys decide to play devil's advocate here and tell me if this, like, for those that like to purchase season passes but don't feel like they're just getting maps is any kind of value? Give me an argument for why it's good for, or it's adding value to season passes.
For the consumer or for the company? Because I can tell you why it's good for the company.
Yeah, we can give you a million reasons why these things are good for the company. Problem is, I'm pro-consumer.
Like it's many things nowadays are very difficult to argue for in the benefit of the consumer, because much of it is it's simply not, like, it's not designed to be. They're not trying to make it be, and it's just tainted from the very start. I feel like having this especially be like it's a monthly events with a season pass, and that's going to be the story thing. This is also kind of playing into the whole thing where companies are desperately trying to compartmentalize their development and spread it out over a much longer period, selling people things.
Early access for $60.
Well, they're taking all the money at the start and then continuing on with it further and spreading out their costs over this time. And they're just getting everything up front still. Nobody's really complaining. Well, I mean, people are complaining about it, but not enough people are voting with their wallet to stop it, right? Like, we're seeing it with season passes for storylines. We're seeing it for, we've seen it already with DLC. Now they're moving it to, complete games, which certain things may or may not be acceptable. I've seen it done well, but I see a lot of potential for it to be done badly.
Yeah.
And random thought to it, this just popped up on my timeline. In more fuck Ubisoft news, the Division PC version is in check with Xbox One and PS4 editions, says the developer. GameSpot just posted that.
They're what now?
In check.
In check meaning?
Meaning they probably toned down the PS4 or PC version to be
Oh,
in line
yeah.
with Xbox and PS4.
Of course they did.
Well,
Yeah.
that breaks my heart, especially because the PC version had its own development.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, uh,
Well, that's what they said. They said the PC build is a unique build to itself.
mm,
You see,
I feel like that's corporate speak, because that
You think it's to make the console players feel better?
probably.
well, here's my thing.
Or
I'll throw out a couple things here first. So going back to the season pass thing. So as far as what you were saying about spreading out the cost, I will throw it out there. You do realize in most cases, once a game gets made, a bunch of developers just get laid off, right? You know, that's usually the thing on there. So spreading out the development over time so that they can keep developers employed longer, I actually don't necessarily think that's always a bad thing.
right.
Some scenarios.
I
Obviously,
feel like
with
that's and I definitely think that that can be a boon for software developers, which I'm definitely for. I definitely feel like video game developers are still not treated as well as they need to be
Hmm.
in large corporate settings, and I feel like having people getting constantly laid off and shuffled around is very, very bad for consistency of your game's quality. If you keep teams together, they can, really go all in on certain concepts and keep things uh, what is the word I'm looking for, and keep things uniform. And I've definitely seen in with games that have changed development teams, and we've seen it with things like Mass Effect, right?
Mhm.
The massive differences in philosophy and design that comes with new team members, and it's not always good.
yeah. Well, and the thing is, though, is that the second point I was going on there of like the PC versus, I'll get to that in a minute, but I don't know. Like to me, honestly, as I've said before, I don't have a problem with DLC. I don't even have a problem with season pass because if you're gonna throw out three, $15 DLCs, so that's gonna be $45. You have it planned. You don't have it developed because fuck that day one DLC bullshit. But if you have it planned to make three $15 DLCs, so it's $45, and you throw out a $30 season pass to people, hey, it's you essentially getting a free piece of DLC there. I'm okay
Right.
with that because that gives value to the consumer. It drives competition. That's
Hmm.
good. But with that said, it's a
It's
tricky business whenever you start dividing the player base, though. Because here's the thing: season pass, like say for example, season pass with Mass Effect 3, that would have been fine because you had a ton of DLC that came out for single player that was fine. Multiplayer in that game, all that DLC was free anyway, so no season pass was necessary. So you're not dividing the player base. At what point you start giving special treats to the people that are paying extra? It's like that's fine. That's giving value to those people, but to everyone else that can't afford it, that especially if you start giving them better performing stuff,
Like what
that's
they did with Payday.
yeah,
right.
like
That
yeah.
Yeah.
That pay to win bullshit.
I feel like this kind of and I've definitely rethought about this a lot in terms of like a business model going over time. I feel like it can work, and I feel like it can be worth it for the consumer as long as it's given. You know, and you asked me, hey, what could be good value. I think that good value could be a good price, like a lower price point for what it would usually cost up front. Um,
Yes,
and
like I was
think
saying, the
thinking about
$45 for 30.
thinking about it now, um, something you would need to do was you would need to make it basically be in the base price of the game, right? Like you have people pay for the game and you release content to everybody over time instead of it having to be a separate season pass and having the problems with player base, right?
Hmm.
And I think the biggest issue that I have with it is just how shady that video game companies have been, right? Because this is a system based on trust of the consumer. The consumer trusts that they're not going to get screwed over by the company. And the video games industry does not exactly have a good track record when it comes to that.
Do corporations in America in general have good track records with that, though?
Not just America, that's corporations.
Okay,
Certain
corporations.
Certain things, right? Like
I honestly feel like big business in 2016 is designed to screw the consumer.
right,
Yep.
yeah.
Like, across the board.
There are certain there are certain companies that they have a long-standing relations and very very good. They're a good company in my eyes that I would go for a sort of like crowdfunding or pre-order or prepay kind of thing. But it's just that the video game companies at large, at the very least, the majority of AAA companies have not delivered in terms of quality and service.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I'm sitting here trying to think of a great games company as far as quality as a whole. Like, I just can't think of one right now. Off the top
Think
of my
of
head.
one
I
that
mean, I
does the
can't
season
think
pass.
No, just in general, like just does offer maybe quality content,
like a
maybe or
company,
like
right?
quality
Like
across the board, I should say.
a
Maybe
company that you
Nintendo, if
would be able,
you give their lethargic hardware a pass.
No,
a company that you wouldn't have a problem, putting your trust in for a
don't trust Nintendo.
Oh, I don't trust Nintendo.
But well, nobody trusts Nintendo. Putting your trust in for like an early release game or pay for our development kind of game,
Yep.
that would be like, okay, we're going, hey guys, like we need this money. This is the game we're going to develop. We're going to give you, timely updates. We're going to involve you in the process. And they come out with a really, really good product, and everybody's happy. Like that's the kind of thing, or well, not everybody, but a good majority of people are happy with it. That's the kind of thing we need, right? Is consumer relations and
I know Joe feels the need to throw out CD Project
I was
Red.
about to talk about his
I was
corporate
about to say
shilling.
CD Project Red.
Yeah, he's shilling again for CD Project Red.
Yeah.
Instead of being at home sick and skipping the podcast, he's in the comment section shilling for Red.
Yeah, he's sitting there trying to tell. Yeah, Witcher 3 had a smart business practice. Doesn't necessarily mean the company is angelic by any means. It's just like Google. People that think that Google can do no wrong. Come on.
No,
Google can do wrong.
They're doing some shady shit somewhere.
Just like Google,
Rabbit.
just like Google is not perfect. People aren't perfect, right? And corporations are people, right? So
Don't do that.
Nobody
Don't go
likes
there.
Google when they update the YouTube interface. Everybody hates Google for like a month after that. Okay, Google doesn't get a pass.
No, like
I'm
let's put
sorry.
it this way: Google, for example, their shady shit is bending over the table and handing the Vaseline to every to the RIAA, or music copyright holders, or copyright holders in general, I should say. They just bend over the table and hand the Vaseline to them and say, "Yeah, we know that there's people whom we are partnered with, that we are sharing our ad revenue with, but you know what? We don't really care about them. We would prefer it if you would give us a nice slow ass raping instead."
it's funny. It's funny
Oh, and
because
they're going to use the Vaseline. They're nicer than they were a few years ago.
you give me an interesting idea. I really need to go and look into like Google's corporate structure because it seems like Google is very fractured in their behavior certain times because
Because they
actions,
operate like the Roman Empire is essentially how it is that they will swallow up a company. For example, YouTube is a pretty decently
Right.
sized company, and they let YouTube operate at least mostly autonomously. However,
right.
they link YouTube into the Google ad machine in general, but otherwise, YouTube operates pretty autonomously. Same with several other companies that Google's bought up over the years still operate fairly autonomously. I just want to work for their experimental division, what do they call it, the Project X or something like that. All the
so that you
secret
can
cool
have-
shit that they do.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and then you have personal cooks wheeled out to you and all that good stuff.
And I get to the break room by going down a slide.
Yes.
But I want to pull like an what you call it,
I've
firehouse.
gotten to tour the Google facilities. It was
Do they have hammocks?
you can like I said, you go
Right,
down a
not out of the
fucking
question.
slide to get to the break room.
But I want a fireman pole.
Actually, this it's been
They
a long
probably
time.
would.
I don't know if they still have the slide going into the break room. Once
Uh,
upon a
the,
time they did.
they have a slip and slide down.
Yeah. But yeah, no. The thing is that Google is rated as a great company to work for. They do care about their employees that are directly employed by them.
They've
It's
definitely done some good things as well. They've made a lot of development for things that are very important, right?
Mm.
They've done things in terms of like the ISP market that are very good. I like what they're
yes,
doing with the cell phone market, with their what is their new cell phone thing that
Fi
utilizes? Is that
Pro-
what it is? Yeah, Google
Project Fi.
Fi. Yeah, I really like what they're doing with that. It's not perfect, but I like the idea behind it. It's very simplified. Um, there's certain things that Google does that are very, very good, and then there's certain practices that are not so good.
Like when they tried to force you on what's their Google Plus, and they were trying to force everyone, and nobody wanted it.
Well,
Yeah,
like I don't like Google Plus in that I'm not sure. Like, is Google Plus a completely separate team from Google? Because there's a lot of things that happen on Google Plus in terms of like control and just like crazy things that they do that seem kind of out of step with what Google as a large company tends to
I.
appeal
I
to.
would
I don't know.
want to inquire more into what you mean there, but I'm not going to because that's really tangenting off here. Because Google does make video games yet.
Well,
Um,
they did.
Yeah,
They make was it one of the set top boxes though? Oh no, they made the Chromecast. That's what it
yeah,
was.
Chromecast.
I'm
Um,
really yeah.
but
So they're gonna make a
let's get back to
console.
CD
Watch.
Projekt Red. All I want to say is CD Projekt Red. Um, you know, they're from Poland. That's all that you need to know.
Poland.
Anytime you're thinking that you're safe and secure, all of a sudden, bam, that horse-mounted cavalry comes riding in and just
Well, considering we're a whole ocean away, I think we're okay for now.
nobody knows what that joke is about.
I know
No,
exactly what that joke is about.
it's probably old Polish joke, maybe an old Irish joke. I'm not sure.
It's the where the insult about Polacks came from was whenever Germany invaded with tanks, Poland greeted them with horse-mounted cavalry. People used to make fun of Poland about that, but I'm like, dude, those guys are fucking bosses. Dude's rolling in with a tank, and you're like, I
I
got a horse
mean,
and a
I mean,
sword. What?
it's at one point in time that would have been a valid war tactic, right? Rolling in with on top of horses with like Molotov cocktails and other,
Now it's assisted suicide.
tank disabling weaponry that you could just ride in there fast and with a lot of people and then disable tanks with your speed and maneuverability. Like it's
Mm.
not completely out there, but
That's assisted suicide, bro. If you got
Yeah.
a tank, I want a tank. I don't want to ride out there with a
Well, they
horse.
didn't have a tank, so they had. Hey, they weren't gonna just bend over and take it.
Why not?
Uh,
I mean,
uh,
they expect us all to do.
unlike Google, that's the difference. CD Projekt Red being Polish, that means they're exactly the opposite of Google. Somebody comes in there and says, "Hey, we don't like what your guys are doing." CD Projekt Red is going to be like, "What you say to me?" So yeah, in any case,
Those are good, great guys, though, from what I can tell.
yeah, no, they seem to do quite well. They also seem to really think things over a little bit better. Because don't get me wrong, Steam makes some good choices for the
Consumer for the
Sorry,
consumer.
I'm reading Joe talking about Poland is full of badass mutant monster hunters. You forgot womanizing mutant badass monster hunters.
I thought that was just Geralt.
Yeah, Geralt, who sleeps with anything that has two legs and an extra hole.
Yeah.
Don't you know that like 15% of Polish people can trace their ancestry back to Geralt? Like, come
Sure.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's probably true too. That's the sad part.
This is some sort of truth. They can trace their ancestors back to a fictional character. In any case, so the thing is that how I can't remember. Witcher 3 I think had a season pass, right? Yeah, it did. It
Yeah,
did.
yeah, it did.
So
And they gave you the 2 expansions with it,
yeah.
or you
So
pay $10 for the expansions.
here's my thing is that season passes for half the game's prices. Sometimes will seem steep to people, but I kind of see it depending on what you're giving and what the MSRP, so to speak, of that. Like I was given the example of the three $15 DLCs you have scheduled and you will put out, and then selling a season pass for $30. I'm okay with that. I honestly question how much the final DLC will cost for the Division. Is it going to be $40 worth of DLC? Because I honestly kind of feel like that's probably what it's going to be. It's literally like they're going to give four $10 DLCs and that's it.
Well,
And you
I think the real question is who is DLC really for? Like, I think everybody assumes like, oh, they're breaking up the game. Maybe it really is just additional content for people who are still playing the game who really like it. Because a lot of games people play it for a month or maybe two and then they'll put it down. And the people who really like the game that are still playing it, they're going to get more content and enjoy that new content.
Well, the thing is, when it comes to this kind of model, what I think you need to do to have it be really friendly to the consumer is you as a company need to have a loose baseline on your your ability to deliver on DLC, and your customer base needs to have a certain understanding on, all right, this company this is what how much DLC this company releases usually. This is how much it's usually worth, all right? So now the company is wanting to move over to this season pass based, and they're like, "All right, see what we usually release. We're going to give you a small discount on the amount of DLC that we usually release and spread it over as a season pass. All right, and you're getting a deal for that." However, companies really are not like they either they're inconsistent or they have not previously shown consistency in
Yeah.
Right.
they
Like
just
there are some games that I
there's no
wish it.
baseline. You can't know how much this DLC is going to be worth because
Right.
you can't trust the company to actually
well,
come
like
out
season pass for
with
like
the
an
Like
Elder
look at
Scrolls game.
BioWare.
Oh yeah.
And look at BioWare. Like you looking at the Mass Effect series, in my opinion, all of the DLC for all three, well maybe not the first game, but you could argue down, Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3's DLC was worth it. I wish those games had season
No,
passes.
what was the DLC for the first game? What was the main
They had
one?
one that was like a shooting range, a training facility. I don't remember what that was called. And Bringing Down the Sky, I
Oh no,
thought was worth
the
about five,
moon.
ten
They
bucks.
had wasn't the moon DLC, right?
No, the
No,
moon was in the base game.
that was base game.
Yeah, that
But
was base game.
bringing down the sky, that was actually a pretty decent piece for that.
Yeah, it
game.
was a decent DLC. That's the one DLC that I think was actually worth it from Mass Effect 1. But you could get by without playing it. It doesn't add a lot to the story.
something
It's touched on in the third game for like 2 minutes.
I'm surprised that like Fallout didn't get a season
It does have a
pass.
season pass, a
Does
$20
it?
season pass.
Yeah.
Does it have a season pass? I don't have
Yes.
Fallout, so I wouldn't know.
Which
Does it has a season pass?
for Bethesda game, I think $20 is actually usually good because
Yeah,
usually they'll
usually,
have
I think the season pass
All right,
is
well,
off at 20, 30
the-
bucks.
yeah.
Well, that's what I. All right, that goes back to my previous comment about how like Bethesda. I mean, you can joke about horse armor all you want, but Bethesda has a pretty good track record of having decent quality DLC
Mhm.
that you know what you're gonna pay for,
Hey, wait a
right?
minute.
Yep, and that's exactly
Didn't
what
The
I was
Witcher put
getting
out
at.
horse armor?
No,
Um,
you can
um,
mod it though.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I thought there was something, and they gave it away for free and made some joke.
Oh yeah, I
about
think
it.
they did do free
Yeah,
horse armor.
I think they put
Yeah.
out horse armor
Probably-
for free.
probably as a
and
joke.
made-
That's
yeah.
brilliant marketing, by the way. Like
That's-
props to CD Projekt Red if they did that, because that's just amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
that's hilarious.
Just stabbing
But,
at
that- but-
Bethesda.
hashtag
Travis-
shots fired.
To
So
touch on Travis's point though, that's kind of what I was getting at too, as far as like you have to earn that right kind of to have a season pass, I think. I would say, let's maybe if you're a shooter, You know, like I think Battlefield and Call of Duty, for example, tend to put out decent enough DLC to where you know I like okay, I trust those two franchises because usually the DLC is pretty decent.
And I think it's probably less about whether or not like their DLC is actually worth the amount of money. I feel like it's more of the baseline of okay, this is how much they usually charge for their DLC for this amount of content. It may be a bad deal,
Hmm.
but at least they're consistent, and then you
Hmm.
offer a season pass at a discount.
Right, and I
Mhm.
think, and I also think the season pass is for people you know who love the game. Like I'm not buying the season pass for Battlefront. I have no interest in it in buying the season pass. I think it's a fun game, but I don't play it enough to justify that.
Hmm.
It was always to me like a shooter that I'm gonna pick up every once in a blue moon, and my son still plays it quite a bit. Now, I haven't bought the season pass for Black Ops 3 either, and I love it. I got burned on the Ghost season pass, which
Yeah.
the game itself just wasn't that great, and I bought it with the game. Stupid mistake, not doing that again. This last season pass I think I bought for any game was Call of Duty Ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is as we were saying, done right and kind of earning trust of your consumer, right? That's a company that does DLC consistently bad or does not meet the expectations. I guess that should be the real thing on there. Call of
Right.
Duty players are expecting maps. They're not expecting a whole lot of other shiny shit.
Right, maybe some guns and camos.
Maybe a camo, maybe a gun, but you know, the thing is that there are some companies, like I said, like Bethesda, as Joe and I were saying, there are some hit or misses Bethesda does, but baseline they do pretty well. They're not
Mhm.
fantastic at it, I wouldn't say by any means.
I,
Shivering Isles is Stand Apart is probably one of the best DLCs ever made for any game,
Yeah,
in my
Shivering Isles.
opinion.
Shivering Isles is probably like is a steal for the amount of money
Yeah,
that
it was twenty
And
goes for.
dollars, and that was like a
Right.
full game unto
Um,
itself.
and Joe's in
So
the chat
but
talk about the Skyrim DLC, and like I said, I don't like Skyrim. I haven't been able to get into it, but everyone tells me the DLC for Skyrim
right.
is amazing.
well,
I
the
don't
thing
think.
is he said he wasn't wowed by Dawnguard, but I'll point out is that as far as what was offered for the price of Dawnguard, which they followed this archetype starting with Morrowind, right, where they had one DLC that was in the map. It was kind of the lighter one on there, but it had certain mechanics changed to the game, that sort of thing. So you had Blood Moon with Morrowind. Then you had Knights of the Nine with Oblivion and Dawnguard with Skyrim, or all those three in-map DLCs.
Right.
And all three were great. They added a unique storyline, they revamped mechanics in the game, and they added something interesting in there. Then you had the three out-of-map DLCs that did not take place within the normal map, and that was Mournhold in Morrowind, and then that was Shivering Isles in Oblivion, and Dragonborn in Skyrim. And those three were also fantastic. I mean, I was a little bit not wowed by the bad guy in that. He was kind of like, okay, literally, when the guy first shows up, with his armor on, and then he takes off on a dragon, the only thing I could picture was like, dude just dropped the mic on my head and then hopped on a unicorn and flew away. That's how I was thinking
Well,
of.
like
I was like,
I have some decent Fallout experience too. I played 3 in New Vegas so far, and I've all of the fully fledged DLC expansions that they've had for Fallout. I've basically been happy with all of them. Even Anchorage, which is one of the more controversial for Fallout 3. I don't know. Personally, I'm weird because I really like Anchorage a lot. Like I think Anchorage is so much fun
mhm.
as a DLC. Just
And
the setting change and the like universe lore that you get from Anchorage is
and I
uh,
would throw out too is that, well, those are the kind of main pieces of DLC. Those actually add significant content. One of the things in Oblivion I actually liked, if they're priced right, mind you, was the little layers that they threw. I think they were like
yes,
between
yes,
I think they were like $2 to $5, something like that, little piecemeal things, and they added essentially a home for you. You could
yeah.
buy homes in every one of the towns, but
There
you
was
had
like
like the
a
assassin one, a thief one, a fighter one, and a mage one. There was four
there
of them
was
all
a
together.
I think there was like a vampire one too.
Yeah, there was the assassin. You had assassin, thief,
Yeah.
warrior, and mage. So you got like a traditional castle if you're a warrior. What actually had a little story to it, so it wasn't just like, here's a castle, guys.
Yeah, it had like a quest, like a small quest line to it.
Yeah, and
right?
you know, the assassin one came with some badass armor. You had a vampire follower. You had, you know, it was assigned for the vampire assassin. You had a shrine to fucking Sithis.
And it was
Come on.
it was underwater, like you
Yeah.
accessed it underwater. Oh, it was
Yep.
so good.
And the thief one, that was actually pretty cool too. Like you had a secret passage that went into a castle, and honestly, that's one of the reasons why Oblivion to me is still one of the better single player Elder Scrolls game. Is simply because the amount of heart that was put into it versus Skyrim. Skyrim, it's
You can definitely tell, I think.
yeah, it was definitely less heart put into it. But as far as DLC goes, Bethesda marginally put some effort into their DLC. To
Oh,
me,
man.
the aside from the horse armor, that guy, Bethesda, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
They have not made that mistake again. They learned their lesson. I'll give them that.
I'm just thinking,
But-
like I just remember, like thinking back about like Bethesda DLC, and I'm thinking about like Point Lookout and how ridiculous certain parts of that DLC was for Fallout 3.
Yeah.
Your brain in a jar. Here, buddy, eat these seeds.
Hey, you know what? The best part, you know, one of my testing out my surround sound system was when I threw up Shivering Isles on the Xbox 360. Put on the surround sound and went and found, I can't remember what town it was in, but there's this Argonian named Runs in Circles.
Mhm.
And as you can imagine, that's exactly what she does. She runs in circles going nee 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 nee. And it's great
Wow.
testing your surround sound because you just stand in the middle and you just hear nee 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 nee. It's great. It's fantastic. But in any case, let's get moving on, shall we?
The things I need to do in my life. Thanks for giving me something for my
Yes,
checklist.
fine runs in circles. Best character in the Shivering Isles.
Will do.
So in any case, now we're gonna go ahead and get on to the less fun one here. So WB,
Again.
fucking WB. So after botching the PC port because they outsourced it to a company that obviously can't do very well for themselves, now they announced that, hey, you know what? We're just giving up. Fuck you guys. They're canceling the Mac and Linux port that they had planned. They had up for pre-order. People had already tossed down money to get it. And then they were like, yeah, fuck you guys. We just don't care. You know,
I
like,
believe they canceled the Steam OS version too.
that's Linux.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't
Steam
know.
OS is
I
Linux.
didn't. I know it's based on Linux, but I didn't know.
I
if
think
you
it's
had the
Debian
version.
it's based off of, but whatever the case, it's Linux. So they this remind you of the whole Arkham Origins thing where yeah, there's bugs in the game, but yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and work on DLC.
Now I'm wondering if this is a developer issue or if this is a publisher issue. I'm starting to really think this might just be an issue with WB because you also see they did the same thing recently with Mortal Kombat.
Well, the thing is that no, it's WB absolutely, because here's the thing: is Rocksteady has they aren't in charge of the ports. WB outsources the ports to a third party company, and you know this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about like the evergreen that I picked for today was talking about publishers and what they do and what they don't do. Well, one of the things they do is they do manage workforce in a lot of cases on a big project like, say, Arkham Knight. And they essentially have, you know, I'm pretty certain they were in charge of outsourcing the ports rather than Rocksteady taking it under their wings, which guess what? Rocksteady had to anyway once they fucking pulled the Arkham Knight from the Steam store. They had to go back and Rocksteady had to fix the bad PC port and then push it back out. And it took them like, what, 8 months or something like that?
No, I didn't
7
take them
months?
8 months. It took them like I think they had down for like 3-4 months.
You know,
No, because it was like from March until like
No,
October.
the game didn't even come out until June.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the game came out around. I remember I beat the game on 4th of July.
That's right. But it was like October or November.
Yeah, it came back out in like October, and the game actually, if you turn off the NVIDIA effects actually runs really well now. If you turn off the NVIDIA.
But that's come on.
But that's GameWorks. Like GameWorks breaks a lot of games.
Yeah, I feel like if you come on,
Like
just don't put them in
I'm
there.
I'm not saying that it's an excuse, but I'm saying you know what if that has to be a common factor. So
They
GameWorks
probably
breaks a lot of
well,
games.
it's also a problem in that a lot of developers use that as an advertising
Yeah,
platform,
that's a bigger problem.
and that's an issue.
That's why I
Like,
never understood like AMD
Yeah.
owners. I'm saying like, oh, GameWorks doesn't work on our shit. I'm like, I'm an NVIDIA owner, and don't work on my shit either.
yeah,
That's because your 3.5 gigs of VRAM can't handle it.
Probably
when it comes,
970 Master Race.
when it comes to this whole Mac Linux thing, all right. Looking at it from and I'm not saying it's good, but looking at it from a Warner Brother or not Warner Brothers, why WB? Is WB Warner
Yes,
Brothers?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Looking at it from a Warner Brothers perspective, is that development really worth it? Like, is the development of this port for Mac and Linux going to make them enough money to actually uh, make the port worth it? Because Mac and Linux, while Linux is kind of growing and Mac does have a good, user base in terms of gamers and people that are going, the amount of people that are actually on these systems and are going to buy the game and give them money, monetarily speaking, or economically speaking, is it going to be worth putting this development in for these ports?
I hear what you're saying. My thought is they promised it.
They
I
did
don't.
promise it. They did, and you said they took pre-orders for it, right?
Right, yeah, they took pre-orders
They
for it.
took pre-orders for it. That is unacceptable.
Real quick, Joe, since you're not actually talking on the podcast, I just would like to point out that you do have mod rights. Throwing that out there for you. So you can be a chat moderator since you're not on the podcast.
So what probably, and I don't have any information on this. What probably happened is they set it up for pre-order, and they didn't get enough pre-orders to cover costs.
Then they should have said that. They should have said, it's just not. We're not making enough money off it because not enough people bought it. I think that's reasonable. Most people can understand that.
I kind of, but like if you think of it from a company perspective, like they still think that that's going to be a ton of backlash, right? Like you don't want to put out all of that information. Like if I was a company owner, I would, but whenever I think about how corporate works and how tight-lipped they are on even smaller issues than this, it's not like surprising to think that they would just scrap it and not say why.
Mm-hmm. The thing is that they as I've gone on before about the whole publicly traded bullshit, is essentially a way for them not to have to explain themselves.
Right.
They won't, because for some reason that could cause stock fluctuations if they explain that they couldn't finish the damn port because it was costing them too much money.
That makes their shareholders think that the company, something must be wrong with the company, or like they must not be advertising good enough, and they won't.
And it could be very well a technical problem.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you got to think about a game like this anyway, like you were saying before with sales. Like, are they making enough money? Because let's be real, the bulk of the money for Arkham Knight probably came on PS4.
Yep.
And
almost certainly, because I guarantee you that I would say probably about at least half. At least half.
You're being generous.
Well, no,
I'm thinking like 70%.
No, I'm saying of the people that returned their games on PC that took advantage of Steam refunds, I would guarantee you half or less actually went and repurchased it once it was re-released.
Oh, less. Yeah, nobody did that because everybody word on the street is that it's still like a piece of shit.
Well, yeah, you've already lost your consumer confidence. Like you've already messed up. And
well, I mean, look at a game like Battlefield 4. Like Battlefield 4 released like shit, and now it's honestly probably the best shooter as far as consistent connections and everything. As far as running well, like Battlefield 4 now is amazing.
Generally speaking, goodwill is difficult to gain and easy to lose.
Yeah, it is, and DICE busted their asses to gain consumer trust back, where you could see they didn't do that with Arkham Knight.
Who was that that said that they were trying to do that recently? He was making bold statements about trying to earn consumer trust back. Was another one of the big guys out there. I don't know.
I don't know.
I didn't hear that
I'm
quote.
sure all of them have done it
Well, no,
before.
it was a story. So, like one of the big guys out there was trying to essentially say that he was, they were trying to earn consumer trust back, and I'm like,
Phil Spencer, because Phil Spencer says that a lot.
well, the thing is, honestly, Phil Spencer is he's the
Phil
guy.
Spencer deserves praise.
He's cleaning up somebody's mess. That let's be
Right.
honest.
Phil Spencer's
Uh,
doing a hell of a job with the Xbox One.
Phil Spencer is cleaning up one of the largest messes in like
Yeah, like
the
he
last
Like,
like I don't even know how
like,
many.
the real question is, and here's the better question: who left a bigger mess, Bush Jr. or Dan Patrick?
okay, we'll leave that one alone here. So, I guess my main question to be asked on this whole Arkham Knight debacle, is this kind of is this whole thing is this kind of should this be a telling story of the pitfalls of outsourcing your ports to other platforms?
I think that we have all sorts of uh like evidence that that is a bad idea unless
I
you
don't
like
think necessarily outsourcing your port is a bad thing, but you have to give the studio the resources they need.
we don't there just hasn't been like there's not a company with a good enough track record to be able to trust with it. There
Yep.
just isn't. Like there's been too many bad ports that have been outsourced and none of these companies have done a good enough job because outsourcing is inherently a cost-cutting measure, so it's almost always going to be of lesser quality. And when it comes to, video games, things that are so complex and take so much time and so much development, when you cut corners, things are going to go wrong. And it's very easy for things to go very wrong.
I hear that, but at the same time, most PC ports are outsourced from the research that at least that we've seen or things that we've heard thus far. And the PC port is almost always better still than the console version, which is the primary version of the game. Almost
That's kind of
always.
sad though, right? Like
Well, I think the PC hardware just muscles its way through the port.
yeah, in
In
a
all
lot of
honesty,
cases. Yeah. I guess that should be a telling sign of
That's to
like
be, yeah, like to be completely fair though, like making a PC port that doesn't have to do that is like very difficult. Like you would almost need to double your production costs to make a PC port that didn't require straight up hardware muscling through.
or yeah, I think it's all about how you optimize the game. 'Cause look at something like Mad Max. Mad Max ran great on PC, a WB game at that. You know,
Optimization costs a lot of money and
and
a
that
lot
game was
of time.
optimized like a motherfucker.
Like it's not
fucking
even just
optimization does not fucking cost money. Do your job right from the start and then you don't have to optimize. All that optimize means is you're having to clean up the shit that you left all over the place. That's
Just
all
cause,
that's insider
well,
info, guys. That's what optimized means is that you didn't leave a bunch of shitty
well,
code everywhere.
I'm kind of talking about like optimization in terms of like when it comes to different systems, right? You need
Well, no,
to have
what
things run on the wide variety of
Yeah,
systems
well,
that
no. What I'm
go to
saying
the
is,
API though.
what I'm saying is that, so for example, and Joe's even talked about this in the long time ago in the past. A sign of a poorly optimized game is a game that has like raw audio files. I don't mean high grade lossless audio files. I mean raw, as in they take up about 100 times more space than they need to.
oh
Titanfall.
Because yeah, like Titanfall was a
yeah,
great example of that.
that
That is poor optimization. You didn't clean your shit up. Another example would be, for example, if there is a Mac and a Linux, or let's say a Linux and a, because usually Mac and Linux are kind of tied into one there, but say you have a Linux and a PC version on Steam of a game, right? And you dig into if you were able to dig into the source code of the PC version, the Windows version, and you found Linux bash commands in there. That's poorly optimized. That means you didn't clean your shit up. That means that anytime, because There are similar Bash and Windows commands that might run. If you found like those sort of things that are meant like to run on a different platform that you just didn't clean up whenever you're making a port for a different one, that's poorly optimized. And those extra lines of code cause the game to run poor. That's just the truth of it. Or if like if you see some like if you have 6 different programmers working on AI coding and they don't fucking talk to each other and they all make conflicting AI commands, which by the way happens a lot if you've ever seen some of the AI and like, oh, name your game that has AI enemies, can Division, where I just saw this guy that was standing out in the middle of anywhere and he would shoot at me, then turn around and stand for like 30 seconds. And then I'd shoot him and he would turn around and shoot at me again and then turn back around and face the other direction. Probably because there was 2 different AI programmers there that weren't talking well enough and they came up with conflicting rules for the AI. That's poorly optimized. That's where I'm getting on there. So I'm going to get off of that rant.
Oh,
but
I mean, I'm sure optimization does take some time and money in terms of development. I'm not like I said, I'm not an insider. I don't know just how much it takes, but I'm sure it takes something.
It's easier to optimize. It's kind of like, think of it like you're building a house, right? Say you're construction dude, you're big burly construction guy, right? You're building a house. It's optimization would be the equivalent of keeping all of your tools organized right near you. So you've got your drill, you've got your saw, you're all neatly organized in some
How many
fashion.
construction sites have you been on, Marty?
I've been to a couple of them. Now here's this. You'll notice one of 2 things happen. Either you have like depending on the grade and size of the construction job, but if you have, for example, a well-optimized major construction site has teams working on different segments. You've got the guy riveting I-beams. You got this guy, sawing off blah, blah. You have different teams working on things in an efficient manner. A poorly optimized major construction site would have guys just wandering around aimlessly, not quite sure what job they're supposed to be doing. So a guy just randomly picks
tools.
Yeah, a guy just picks up a saw, starts sawing something, doesn't know what he's actually sawing. He just starts sawing stuff because that's what he's supposed to do, right? And then you just have a guy start riveting, cars instead of I-beams, whatever. Hey, this car was in the parking lot. That must mean it's part of the project, right? That's poorly optimized. And what happens when the building gets put up? It's wobbly as shit. Nothing's even. That's what happens. So if you start off with good organization from the start, it's easier to kind of keep things neat and tidy. And optimization is an ongoing process throughout. You just kind of have to clean up after yourself. Whereas a lot of these games, they have so many people working on it, it's so hard to keep, like Assassin's Creed. That's a prime example of poor optimization. There's so many damn people working on it, you can't keep that shit clean. And then they have to spend hours upon hours trying to optimize it. I mean, how long was Syndicate, or not Syndicate, but Unity? Yeah, how long was Unity complete junk?
Like 9 months.
Yeah. That's 9 months of them just optimizing, cleaning up their mess.
Yeah, it was so bad that like as a Syndicate for me ran like a dream. I couldn't max it out.
Because I think their lesson. That's what that happened.
But I was pretty damn close. I think the only stuff I did turn off again was GameWorks.
Yeah, I think GameWorks feels like it's contrived in a lot of games. Like I don't know, maybe AMD throws them a few extra bucks and says, "Hey, throw in GameWorks and we'll give you a cut of something."
That's NVIDIA.
I think we should move on to our next topic here soon.
Oh yeah, since it's well past time. That's what happens whenever Morty starts ranting on bullshit.
Yeah, see, I try to tell him that every week and he ignores me.
Yeah. It's not like our next story is going to have a whole lot to talk about. I mean, I'll have a bit, but Square Enix.
I think this is a great story.
No, it is. It is a great story. You are absolutely right.
It changes consumer perception on just the platform for PC gaming. Anyway, go ahead and introduce it, because I'm gonna give shit away.
Yes, go for it. All right, so so Square Enix enjoys a huge amount of profit games due to mobile and PC gaming, both separately. But obviously, the biggest one they're touting is the mobile part, but they tried to gloss over the PC a bit, it looks like. But the more important question is the growth in PC gaming and mobile gaming. Will reports like these start increasing developer interest in moving away from console development? Like,
No.
because no,
I
you don't
mean,
think so?
I hope so, but
No.
yeah.
I think Square Enix in particular, like I was hearing reports that they actually thought that these current consoles were going to fail. And that's why, like, you see a game, for example, like Just Cause, that actually ran really poorly at launch for console. My understanding was it's because it was designed to be on PC. Like, PC didn't have nearly as many issues as the
Right.
consoles did for that
That's a
game.
welcome change for once.
Yeah, that doesn't happen very often.
Can't spell
Um,
Square to save my life.
To be fair though, like Just Cause is a really fun just sit down and mess around with game, which is good for consoles. But at the same time, Just Cause is like, if you think about it, Just Cause is an amazing mod uh, platform. Like just the idea of it. I'm not sure. Like I haven't looked much into it, the new one. I'm not sure how easy it is to mod it, but like for reference, the last Just Cause game had a multiplayer mod
they're
added
working on
to
it for
it.
free.
Yeah.
They were
So
working on it for
So
free a
you can
couple
have a
weeks ago.
multiplayer Michael Bay simulator.
Yeah,
yes, and that's the best kind, right? Like,
yeah,
who watches Michael Bay movies by themselves? I mean,
I do
That-
actually.
it's
My wife won't watch
it's
them with
because
me.
of that
She's not
Megan
into that.
Fox. That's what it is.
Usually, well, I took my kids with me to see Ninja Turtles in theaters. Well, because we also know I love the Ninja Turtles, so there's that.
So Joe's telling us apparently Jim Sterling apparently did a video on this citing anonymous sources in Squeenix.
Squeenix.
Just
Phoenix.
Jim Sterling said it, so it's a fact.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or not.
Hey, but we have to thank God for him. You know how that goes.
You can.
Nah, I told you after Gaben disappointed me, I can't praise people like that
See,
anymore.
no. Here's my thing: is that I think that Jim Sterling has done a brilliant job with marketing a persona. Honestly, it's a very well made persona that he has used to a very effective means of criticizing the games market.
Mhm.
And I will always credit him for that because in a lot of ways, Jim Sterling keeps some of the developers humble. Other ones just give him the finger because they don't care. They're just swimming in money and they're like, Jim who?
It's like Comcast.
Yeah, it's like Comcast. You know, they're swimming. They're like Scrooge McDuck swimming in their
Or
gold
Ruger at
gold
Shawshow.
coins, and they're like, who? But
Uh.
it's people like him that keep a lot of developers humble, especially the ones like. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. I play Warframe a lot. I'm gonna have to gripe here just for a second on this whole PC gaming thing. We'll get back to that. I have to gripe a lot here. I play Warframe a lot, you know, and I enjoy Warframe quite a bit. But it always, like, one of the things I always looked to Total Biscuit for was to be the cynical gamer, to kind of try to find flaws, the chinks in the armor of a facade. And he unfortunately missed all of them with Warframe. Just kind of was like, whatever.
He's you know Morty. I feel like he's kind of in the honeymoon phase with Warframe though, because I've noticed he's been streaming and playing it a lot.
Oh, has he? So he's still on it? Okay.
Yeah.
He'll. I think he's gonna eventually get to it.
I think he's probably still in the honeymoon phase with Warframe.
And who is that? I missed that part.
Total Biscuit with Warframe.
Oh yeah.
Because there's a lot of problems with that. There's a lot of problems with the development.
Yeah,
At what
I mean,
point?
I disagree.
Glenn-
I mean, yeah.
One of the developers, Glenn, whenever people gave him a lot of feedback contrary to his personal skewed findings, he had an imperfect testing method, and whenever people called him on it, he essentially threw a hissy fit. I'm sorry, like, if you cannot handle people calling you on bullshit, you should not be interacting with the public. Sorry,
Yeah.
Glenn. If you happen to watch this, no offense, man, but seriously, listen to people rather than just saying, I did the testing on my own personal time and therefore it's right. Come on. No, don't be like that. Anyway, moving on. Let's get back onto it. I don't want to get on too much of a tangent here because
Well,
I've been going on that for a while.
So what were we talking about?
we were talking about
Squeenix.
the Square
Squeenix
Enix
saying
and sales for games is something that I think a lot of people haven't credited, at least this generation. Multi-platform games on PC are outselling the Xbox One, and we're seeing reports of this every couple months. Ubisoft reported a few months ago. Now Square Enix is. There was somebody else who did it over the summer, right before Ubisoft did it. Like, you're seeing a lot of this, so I think the rise that I'm starting to see, at least in PC gaming, is as a platform.
Mm-hmm.
It's really starting to show a lot, and it's starting to show, where developers used to say, "Oh, PC gamers pirate everything." And now you're starting to see, no, there's a lot of people that actually support the platform that will hopefully maybe start to see more games that have a PC version and a console version, and they're developed separately but at the same time.
Now,
I mean, PC has massively popular games that people aren't exactly pirating, right? Like, say what you want about how bad League of Legends is, but
or Dota 2. Well, Dota 2 is free.
Dota 2.
But those are
Dota
free
2.
to play games. You
So
can't
is
pirate
like
free to play games.
technically. But,
I mean, maybe you can hack them and get riot points or whatever, but you can't pirate free to play games. That's why I think there's a huge growth of free to play on PC.
Well, I'm talking about those in terms of like people getting into the like the PC market, right? Like we have these games that have massive player bases, massive growing player bases that are drawing people to the PC. And you're not just gonna buy you're not gonna buy a PC just to play Dota or League of Legends. Well, you might, but even after you do, you're most likely
the laptop you own will probably play Dota and League of Legends, or like Team
you're
Fortress.
probably gonna like if you buy a PC to play these games, you're probably gonna want to try and branch out to other games, right? So I see that markets are definitely growing for the PC. And I've been really, even though I'm not like massively into the PC gaming right now, I still play some what I can get by with on my laptop. But I definitely have had hope for the PC market for a long time now. And I hope it continues to grow. And, the whole mobile market thing is an entirely different beast that I feel like we could talk about for like an hour or so.
Well, let's be honest. I don't know if you guys have noticed this at all. Like something I've noticed is a lot of the games they were citing as doing well on the mobile market are actually not your Candy Crush or Farmville or whatever other mobile games I'm not really paying attention to a whole lot. They're not actually or Angry Birds and Candy Crush, like your stereotypical mobile games. They're not. They're actually more full-fledged games that you actually do pay for. I think they're like somewhere between $5 and $15.
Right.
But they're actually a lot, because the hardware on mobile devices nowadays can handle pretty decent games. I mean, not like it's not going to handle Witcher 3 on ultra settings by any means.
Well, most people's PCs aren't going to handle that.
Exactly. But they can handle, especially a lot of these retro CRPGs and stuff. I've seen a couple of them on mobile, and they're damn well put together. Honestly, you could throw a game like Divinity Original Sin on mobile, and it would probably run decently. You might have to shunt down some of the textures, but it would run. And since you can click on everything with your finger, it would probably do pretty well.
Now, just for the sake of the audience, because I know I had to look this up myself, CRPG, what is that?
Computer RPG. It was a term devised back in the day whenever pen and paper RPGs, I mean, not that people still don't play them, but whenever they were
they were like the mainstay.
They were the mainstay. Whenever you said RPG, you meant pen and paper.
Right.
CRPG,
these are like text-based, right?
Huh?
Started with like text-based, right?
I'm trying to remember, but there's a few of them that start off. I mean, because obviously the first one I think I remember was obviously Arena was one of the first ones I remember, but I also remember there was this DOS text-based RPG was the first one that I actually remember playing. But aside from that, the CRPG just stands for computer RPG. It just means that it was a RPG on a computer game. Now it's used to refer to the retro style of the Diablo and that sort of thing.
Right.
The isometric,
You know,
or Baldur's Gate. That too. You know.
something I feel is kind of like a more untapped market is like like JRPGs and stuff. Like
Oh no,
the
they're not
older.
untapped. Square Enix, one of their big sellers is Final Fantasy. Damn it! I know this one. I was actually just reading about it. I was like,
I know the
oh,
big ones are on there, but do they have the smaller ones on there yet?
well, they had. I know one of the ones they put on mobile. Now, the one thing I don't. Whenever I should clarify when they say mobile, they're not just talking cell phones and tablets. They're also talking
Yeah, they're talking about mobile.
Nintendo DS and that sort of thing as well. But let me real quick.
Anything mobile that you can play games
You know,
on.
so
Yeah.
you know, I wanna step back and talk about like going on to the mobile console, quote unquote, handhelds. I like to call them handhelds.
Yeah,
Mhm.
handheld consoles.
Um, Something that I remember specifically is whenever like the PSP and what was the successor to the PSP?
The Vita.
The
Yeah.
Vita. Yeah, when the PSP and especially the Vita came out, like there was a large market for people that were excited to have full-fledged games on their handhelds that played well. Um, I
Hey,
find it sad.
don't joke
I,
about the Final Fantasy remakes, Ivan. That's a big deal, actually. Believe it or
I
not.
I think a lot of people still want full-fledged games
Right.
on their handhelds,
Yep.
but they're going to the 3DS for it.
Yep.
It's very sad that the Vita did not take off, and it's kind of a tragedy in terms of like how Sony handled it. It could have been handled much better, right? In
I
an
think
alternate
it
in
was
an
wrong time for the Vita.
in an alternate universe, the Vita gets Monster Hunter and then takes off from there in Japan and then spreads to the US. But
Mhm.
Monster Hunter went to the DS, and that was kind of one of the flagships for
And that was kind of a nail in the coffin for
right.
Sony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Vita was already doing badly. I think it just came out at the wrong time. I honestly think that's what it was. I think at this point in time, Nintendo has basically owned the handheld market for the better part of 30 years.
Hmm.
Right.
And people will buy a Nintendo handheld. And when they think of a
Well,
handheld, yeah, I'm going to buy a Nintendo and just a Nintendo. They're not going to go out and buy a
right.
PlayStation handheld. They'll go get the PlayStation console.
Well,
Yep.
we're also kind of at a point where like cell phones are, growing and cutting into that handheld console market,
Very much so.
which makes it difficult to compete with it in terms of having like a high fidelity, graphical fidelity handheld console. When you have phones that we're getting 4K screens on or whatever now. So it's a very difficult time for the mobile market. I still think that the failure of the Vita was largely a part of Sony's inability to handle it correctly.
Mhm.
Well,
I think that if it was handled by a different company, it could have, or handled in a different way, it could have succeeded.
This was the lack of foresight on there, right? So one of
Right.
the major failings of the mobile market was this thought that people want full length, 80-hour RPGs on a mobile. No.
But they put Borderlands 2 on the Vita.
Yeah, like
No.
no, people don't, and that was one of the failings of the Vita. Is that what games do you have for the Vita? You have like a bunch of JRPGs that are
Right.
like 50 hours long each, and then you have like random other games that are also long. Nobody wants to do that on mobile. People
You
want a
don't-
game that they can pick up for a couple minutes and then put back down.
You don't have
Right.
you
That's
don't have
what
your
that's what makes Pokemon great. Like you can play Pokemon for
Or
like 10
Final
minutes.
Fantasy Tactics. That was like what I just posted in the chat. That would be a great freaking game on mobile.
The
Seriously,
Vita doesn't
Sona.
have their Pokemon. The Vita doesn't have their Monster Hunter. They don't have their tactics. They don't
Well,
they don't have
they put
Final
Little
Fantasy
Big-
Tactics is Square Enix,
Not-
and it
I
was
don't know if
published by
they I don't
Sony.
know if they have one or not, and I could be very wrong. What if they put Little Big Planet on the Vita?
Right? That would be damn good. Or second screen that shit. Add some
Yeah.
interface with the
They did that.
the
The
PS.
Vita works with the PS3 and PS4
Yeah.
as a second screen.
No, I'm saying like essentially you have like the person on the PS4 or whatever is putting together the map on the bigger screen, and then you can save it and throw it to your because Little Big Planet, you can build, the platformy map, right? Kind of like Mario Maker. Build your Mario Maker or your yeah, Mario Maker. Good God, Nintendo! Please don't shut the stream down for me accidentally saying the name of one of your games. But your Little Big Planet, you have make the map on one and then play it on the other. People love that shit because, like I said, with Mario Maker, you actually can do that with the DS and the Wii U. You can or the Wii U controller itself. You can make the map on. People love that shit. The few that play those games.
And while we're talking about handhelds too, this concerns me about the NX because we're hearing a lot of different things about it. Is it going to be a handheld or is it going to be a console? In all intents and purposes, I really think the NX needs to be a console. I think we're getting to that point where Nintendo would be better off putting they probably make more money putting their games on mobile, on cell phones, and tablets. I think they make more money than that than they would making dedicated hardware.
The problem I have is that I see Nintendo through a Western view. I see Nintendo through a Western viewpoint, and from a Western viewpoint, Nintendo is doomed to fail with their current market philosophy in the West.
But they are the shit in Japan.
They're still massive in Japan. So that's an issue if you like Nintendo.
Even back in the days of Sega.
Right.
Like Sega was desperate to try to compete with Nintendo, and Nintendo was just.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it was because I loved the Genesis.
Sega was bigger in America than it was.
It's kind of like PlayStation and Xbox. With the exception of this generation, Xbox is always since it's come out, it's kind of been a little bigger in the West.
The Famicom came out long before Sega was a thing. Like you gotta remember, essentially, picture it as Sony's PlayStation to Microsoft's Xbox, right?
Right.
Sony had the PlayStation 1 before the Xbox was ever a thing. It was the PlayStation 2 that competed with the Xbox. That was the same thing with with Sega versus Nintendo. Nintendo came out with the Famicom first. And then the Super Famicom or Super Nintendo, whatever you want to call it.
Well, they did have the there was another one that came out before the Genesis, but it flopped horribly.
I don't remember it. I know they had the Master System.
Before my time.
Yeah, the Master System was just the Genesis in Europe, but there was another one before that failed horribly.
That's what I term it the Master System because that's the official name for it. Like same with the Famicom, calling it the Nintendo. Nintendo is obviously the name of the maker, right? That's why I say Famicom, because that's the actual name of the device model. I don't know why they couldn't keep the name Famicom coming to America. Maybe it didn't market that well.
I think they might have, and everybody just called it a Nintendo.
Yeah, Nintendo was kind of
Nintendo and Super Nintendo in America just were called that. They weren't called Famicom or Super Famicom.
People were calling non-Nintendo consoles Nintendos.
Yeah,
right?
My mother to this day calls my PS4 a Nintendo.
You guys remember, a couple months back on our podcast, one of the stories we had was about the UN finding that Nintendo-style video games program people to be killers. Don't forget that one.
And I'm like, me jumping on a Goomba and eating the flour or a mushroom I found on the ground?
Yep. That's programming people to be killers.
Like Nintendo was probably helping kids not become killers.
Man. But let's go ahead and roll this actually into just kind of our thing here, because obviously this major thing is talking about because obviously Nintendo, Sony, all the stories we've been talking about today, we're going to kind of roll it into a summary here to kind of for the next 5 minutes or so kind of close it up. We've been talking about a lot of publishers today, from our story. Square Enix obviously is a publisher. People are familiar with, Tomb Raider. That's made by Crystal Dynamics. Previously, it was made by Eidos. Those are the developers. Those are the people that actually do the work. Square Enix, whatever, are the actual ones that publish the game. They bankroll it. They also make some arbitrary other decisions around the development of the game. As we mentioned, outsourcing. They also make decisions like that. So what I wanted to go around and kind of, with talking about these publishers on here, do you, I know the question I'll pose to you guys kind of as a closing here, do you feel like publishers are too involved in the development of games? Because normally investors invest money into a program, they usually aren't directly influencing the production of it. They might, during a quarterly or during a yearly earnings call, might ask for an action plan on this item that's losing them money. They might ask for an action plan, but they aren't going to directly suggest anything to you. Whereas in video games, the publisher is like, you should do this, you should do that. Do you guys think that publishers are too involved with the development of video games nowadays?
Yes.
Yes.
The one separate
God
word,
damn,
yes.
guys, come on, like
Well,
debate
no,
it.
I'm going to elaborate.
Yeah,
But
go
yeah,
for it.
TLDR is yes. Um, I mean, my problem is when we look at some of the bad stories, like we were talking about Batman today. Of course, my tangents I've been on about Mortal Kombat lately. Um, at some point, it is about money, and with I think when it comes to developers in particular, it's always about the money. I think that's part of why maybe we get so many bad PC ports because they look at games and they say, "Oh, well, it's a game; it's the same everywhere." Because most people can't tell the difference. Like they don't like if you look at a YouTube video of a game and nobody tells you what version it is, you take away say like button prompts or anything. Most people can't tell the difference. So and they treat it all like the same. Like, oh yeah, the PC is the same as a PS4 and as an Xbox, whatever, whatever. So when you look at that as somebody who doesn't play games, you think, oh, well, I'm making all my money on PS4. I'm making all my money on Xbox One. So let's put all of our attention there. And then, we'll get somebody else, some third ring developer or whatever, put as little money as possible for it and throw out a PC version, get a little bit more extra money. And I think that's how a lot of publishers look at it. And that is a detriment to gaming. A horrible, horrible thing for gaming. It holds the medium back.
So, Travis,
Yes.
got something to add to that?
I feel like whenever you put so much detached corporate influence on anything, on any artistic driven medium, you run into some very, very intense issues. I mean, you've both worked in the music industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there have been times, and I
He
believe there
stole my
probably
example.
still are. Oh, I'm sorry.
So it's all good. You're fine. You're fine.
Okay, I'm going to let you elaborate on the music industry, and I will go after you and continue on with what I was going to say.
Well, and first, before I go too far along, so as far as publishers being involved in game development, and Zypher made a comment that also developers do not do. Actually, sure what he was saying. That sentence makes no sense, man. Essentially, he's using digital
Last gen
extremes.
grammar.
Yeah, he was using Digital Extremes as an example, who make Warframe. They're an independent developer, so they actually don't have a publisher that owns them, like, say, BioWare is owned by EA. The thing is that Digital Extremes has investors, though. And in that case, they just essentially, instead of, because they're independent, they don't have a single publisher whispering in their ear. They have about 20 investors or 100 investors all yelling at them at once. So they still feel the pressure. They still have that influence. They have to bankroll that shit somehow. Because I guarantee the microtransactions are not nearly enough as what they could be. Because I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know if you guys have noticed, like, all the advertisement the Warframe puts out there. That's going to cost some good money. Aside from that, moving on to the music industry.
Speaking of, and I wanted to add it to that, your point about the publisher having a million publishers screaming at them. Do you think that might be part of why we get so many bad PC ports that nobody really thinks about? Like when you have a console version of a game, and I remember Phil Spencer did this for the Xbox One, a version of Diablo 3. Like PlayStation and Microsoft and even Nintendo will fight for their version of the game. Since PC, there is no real owner of it. There is no corporation for PC.
Well,
That's kind of the whole thing. That's what it is.
here's the thing: is that there's the truth is that while you get OpenGL for Sony or DirectX 11/12 for Microsoft, which you also get on Windows too. As far as API programming, not a whole lot of difference. But here's the big difference: if I need to patch, if I make a game on and put it out in Steam, let's say I put it on Steam Store, and then I also put it on the Microsoft Store, right, as an indie title. If I need to patch my game, I have to pay for that on Xbox. Versus, and now indie games may be different. They may have a different set of rules, but I know a major game for DLCs or patches and that sort of thing, those have to be submitted and certified by Microsoft, which usually takes a week or two for those to go out. And I believe, depending on the size, once it reaches a certain size limit, it costs them money.
And we should throw this out there too. PlayStation does this too. We're not just beating up on.
Oh no,
Xbox.
no, it's not. It's not just Microsoft. It's
right.
Sony
A lot of
too.
people might think that we're beating up on Xbox. It's not Xbox. PlayStation does it too.
Yeah, but the thing is that
you don't have that on
PC. It's like that's the reason why if you look at Warframe, which is on Xbox, Sony, or Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. If you look at which build is almost always ahead of the other two, it's PC. It's not because they necessarily favor PC. They're actively developing all three platforms at once. The reason why is because they want PC to be ahead. Whenever a new thing comes out, a new thing they're developing, they always prioritize PC, because if something's broken, they can just hot fix it, 30 seconds, have a hot fix out, bam, done.
Mm-hmm.
With Xbox, PlayStation 4, 2 weeks. They just can't do it. It's not an ideal platform. For
Actually, DICE made this point when they were doing what they call the community test environment. Mm-hmm. For those of you that remember, and they were testing patches for Battlefield 4 when it was broken, it didn't come to consoles for like a year. And they said it was because of the testing that they do for the consoles and the fees and everything, where they were doing like weekly patches on PC. They can't. Not only can they not afford to do it, they can't keep up to do it on consoles.
Yeah, which is why now in a multi-platform game, the way that he does it, it's actually brilliant, because essentially PC players are their beta testers in a manner of speaking. Whereas the console players get the more stable builds. Not to say that there aren't bugs in the console variants that they don't notice. Sometimes hot fixes and patches need to come out for that too, but whatever.
Well, I mean, it's kind of the whole PC versus console argument that people make in the first place. You get a console for security, for stability. You get a PC for innovation and to be the first, and things like that usually.
But the thing is, though, is where I was going with the music industry bit is that.
Oh yeah, I was waiting for.
Yeah, the same kind of curse befell the PC, or sorry, God. The music industry, like, 80 years ago? Something like that? Where essentially you had this corporatization of the music industry. And now instead of the standard, hey, I'm a creative mind, I love music, I create this, maybe someone commissions me for musical pieces, like the old classical composers where religious bodies would frequently, want them to make a piece for church or whatever. But once you had, like in the early 1900s, you had that corporatization where all of a sudden they realized how much money they could make off of music. And all of a sudden they started shelling us out, these single serving artists who were okay. They were catchy, good tune, got everybody jumping and dancing for a little bit. And then they were gone the next week. And so the music labels started putting out the next single serve. This developed this kind of money first attitude in the music industry, back in like I think 30s and 40s. Mm-hmm. Where money was the most important thing. And you saw this new artist coming onto the scene. What did they want to do? They wanted to get rich and famous. They wanted to be the next Elvis. Whatever. They wanted to be famous. They wanted to be world known. They wanted all the money. They wanted to. And then once you got into the 70s and 80s, they wanted to snort cocaine and sleep with random women or men. Leave it open there. that's what this became. Is the music industry became this money driven monster where the music became second place to actual the money
And I think
and the fame.
media in general is doing that now because they do it in movies and games and
And
everything, television.
that's the thing is that video games, it's like you can tell that there's been a long since shift of games being about the money, not about the actual creativity in a lot of cases. No offense, Warframe is a prime example of that because I'll be straight up, they've been making a lot of subtle changes and planning, openly planning, and told people they're planning on making missions slower to reward players. Why? Not because they want to extend the content. Good God, no. No, 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 no. See, the thing is that the way that that game runs, you can play it forever, just mission after mission, and everybody loves it. They want to make the missions longer and the rewards slower so that it frustrates players into paying for microtransactions.
Kind of Destiny model, well,
Yeah.
except they're not changing the levels, but you grind and grind and grind
Mm-hmm.
trying to get something. The only difference is Destiny didn't have those kind of microtransactions. There was no buy guns.
And it's such a simple way to lead to more returns, right? It's just like, oh, let's just make the missions take longer, so the speedrunners can't do things as fast, and then hopefully, people get frustrated enough to do microtransactions. It totally won't, you know, make our game any worse, or run players off from the experience, or turn people away, or
Now, I
totally
mean, is
won't
this now? I think a
damage.
better question is this acceptable in a free to play game?
Well, the thing is that that's tricky. It's a tricky question there. There's no simple answer to me because I understand it's free to play. They got to have those microtransactions in there. They need to make their money. They've got their investors too,
But you
but
need people
the
playing the
investors
game
want a
to give you
return
the
on
money,
that,
right?
right?
Travis made a great point right there.
What do you say?
You need people playing the game to be able to get money out of
Yes.
it.
So
Yes.
it's a key balance there. You want the game to be interesting enough and not grindy enough to keep players interested in having fun.
Well, you see, there's an inherent issue in that um, investors are relentless, but eventually players will get fed up and stop playing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, DE's concept and idea behind that is unfortunately about the worst decision that you can make. Is their long practice is a feature creep. That's what they do is feature creep. They will introduce something, and instead of correcting problems inherent with it, the feedback they've gotten of it, instead of going and correcting that, they move on and build something new and just build something new and something new and something new. And the reason why is they keep adding that fresh new stuff in. That drives new players to start playing, keeps the old players interested and distracted by the new shiny thing.
Sounds like World of Warcraft.
Yeah, no, actually, that's very key different. The key difference is that World of Warcraft wasn't doing it for microtransactions. As far as I'm aware,
They're doing for expansions.
there is no microtransactions in World of Warcraft. Period.
Well, no, you're paying that $15 a month and buying DLC.
So they don't. Now where theirs is they want to keep people recurring that subscription, right? If they stagnate too long on expansions, well, as is the case now, they've dropped tons of subscribers. But yeah, it's like as Joe said, new content is more profitable than fixing and polishing old content, and that's their priority.
well, okay. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, twisting it back into the publisher topic on here is that unfortunately that is a lot of the influence from a lot of times what publishers will do. They are more interested in seeing that quick financial return than seeing a more balanced or more stable long-term experience.
Right. I think another issue with that feature creep is when it comes to like a microtransaction model, it gets to the point of it gets extremely daunting as a player who has gone into a long-standing microtransaction-based game.
And we're gonna roll this
You-
into the final thoughts here, just so you know.
Okay, this is my final thoughts. As
Yeah.
a player that has rolled up into a unsuspecting into a long-standing microtransaction-based game that has long had feature creep and just have this mountain of content in front of me that is just nigh impossible to climb over. I would have to I would have to play the game for 3-4 years, you know 10 10-12 hours a day to be able to
Do
clear
everything.
all the content of the game that has
Mhm.
been put out. That's extremely discouraging for some players, especially somebody like me who's like a completionist. I like to
Oh,
collect things in
Jenna
a game.
Bane. That
Are
was the
are
issue.
you so you're an achievement hunter?
Yeah.
I mean, not really an achievement hunter, just like
You're daunted by
getting it.
all the stuff thrown at you.
Yeah,
Like I said, Jenna Bane made a video kind of countering her husband's essentially shilling for Warframe.
Who's
You
Jenna
know,
Bane? I don't know Jenna Bane.
his wife,
Who? Total Biscuit?
John Bane's Total Biscuit.
Okay,
His
yeah,
wife
and
is Jenna
I knew
Bane.
John Bane. I just didn't know his wife.
Yeah, his wife essentially kind of came out with a more even level-headed argument of she came in and did not want to spend any platinum, whereas he had boatloads. He spent $80 into the game right off the bat for a Prime Access pack, and then he got tons of the real-world currency system called Platinum by referral. So he got like, I don't know, 50, 60,000 platinum, which anybody who plays the game knows that is an insane amount of platinum. That is like worth probably, I don't know, if it's for 1,000 platinum, it's like $20. So you do the math on there. $20 for 1,000 platinum, and he had like 50,000 platinum. So
it's
that gives
insane.
gives you an idea of how much that currency he had, and he's just rolling it. He got decorations, he got all the shiny shit, whatever
he
he,
didn't
wants.
really he didn't really experience the massive beginning grind that
Yes,
Right,
Warframe
the thing that
has as a
turned me
single
off
player.
of Warframe
yeah.
was
Whereas
'cause like Joe was telling me once, you had to play like 50 hours just to get into it. I'm like, I don't play almost any game for
well,
50 hours.
and Jenna Bain, she made a good video where she just popped on and said, hey, this is why I'm not going to play Warframe anymore. And she got through that initial hump. She got through. She said the grinding that doesn't really bother her. The problem she had is there's so much stuff thrown at you at once, and it's like, oh hey, you want to pick that one thing out, just focus on that one thing, kind of aim yourself towards it, and essentially she was more or less like, yeah, I want to get this one Warframe. And then it's more or less she picked Mirage, which Mirage is a Warframe, arguably that is one of the more difficult to get because there's a huge string of quest bullshit that you have to go through. But she saw it up front. She saw, hey, look, Mirage, I want to try for that. And then realized as she starts trying to figure out how to get Mirage, it's not explained to her at all. She has no fucking clue what the hell she's supposed to do. And it's just like all this stuff is happening and it's not explained, it's not caring because they don't care about the random person who wants to play for free. They have no real incentive to make an experience easier for her not wanting to spend money. Whereas the experience for Total Biscuit was golden. You know why? Because he had fucking money thrown down into it. Even though a lot of it was from referrals, he still got that real world currency. So he was cruising on easy street. He had everything he wanted.
Even with the referrals, even though he didn't spend any money, he essentially
No,
has
he
the same
spent $80 up front.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
that's okay, but whatever. The referrals are much more than that.
Yeah.
The fact that he had all that platinum, he still had the big spender experience for Warframe, which is equally lavish, right?
Yeah.
So that's an issue.
The problem I have is that essentially they've been kind of chiming on about wanting to make the new player experience better, and they were at one point bragging about how amazing it is. They just made themselves a brand new account that has nothing on it, and they want to essentially go and play the game from scratch from new, and how amazing it was. Well, they're of course jaded because they remember how much worse it used to be, so it's like a revisionist history on there. But for an actual new player who has never seen the game before, Warframe is fucking horrible.
Yeah.
You know, it is like you get that tutorial mission that teaches you how to play the game. Like that gives you like, here's how you move, here's how you shoot. Okay, that's great. Now how do I play the game? You know, like I don't care about moving around. That's easy enough to figure out. I can just click buttons until I figure that shit out. How do I actually play the game? What's this crafting bullshit? What's this mods bullshit? What's this? What are these quests? What's a Kubro? What's a fucking Sentinel? Like all this stuff, throwing this stuff at me. I have no idea. What's the Conclave? What is this little Conclave module? None of that makes any sense to anybody. It's not explained at all because they don't care. That's the truth of it. Is that at least until it behooves them to get players to actually get into the game without spending money, because they're a little bit too eager to get that money from you. Probably.
You know, I don't, I know it's not kind of like relevant to Warframe, but whenever that's the thing that turned me off of League of Legends was whenever I saw the sheer amount of time that it would have taken me to get all of the champions and everything together, that where I could be competitive with somebody who'd been playing for the last 2 years.
It would have
taken me like 5 years of playing.
It's not even that. It's just, let's just take one example. Me trying to learn how to ward properly. That in and of itself would take like a week of playing just to learn how to ward properly in any given situation. That alone is 1 week. By the way, any of you League of Legends players out there know that warding is a very minuscule amount of the whole gameplay, even though it does have a major role. Warding is a very small part of the whole thing overall. A week just to learn how to ward. That's a very, very simple concept. That daunts a lot of people.
To put it into perspective, the amount of like effort to get like in terms of the amount of effort, basically the top, almost the top level of like say Call of Duty players, you know, with reactions and you know, learning pattern recognition for say Call of Duty or Counter-Strike is like the base level of what you need for something like League of Legends. Just knowing where people, you know, what's going to happen, where are people going to go, how's the game going to play. There's just so much for a game like League of Legends of Dota, and that wasn't a problem with me because it was all free with Dota. But the content-wise, just the sheer amount of time just to acquire content freely is what turned me off of League of Legends.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I hear that.
Kev, why don't you give us your wrap-up, your final thoughts, shilling, all that good stuff.
Shilling, I'm just going to say help me hit that road to 1,000 if you haven't already. I just broke 700 subs this weekend, so I'm excited about that. Enjoying the Black Ops 3 multiplayer maps. I haven't tried zombies yet.
What? Sorry. What?
Yeah. See, you're just going to be saying that. Enjoying XCOM.
Play that XCOM.
I'm enjoying Black Ops 3 also, so I'm jumping back and forth.
I'm teasing you mostly.
I know. You're not a fan of Call of Duty, so
not anymore. I did Modern Warfare 3.
Yeah, see, I played the newer ones. Like my first one was Black Ops 2. So
I played Black Ops 1, Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 3, and Ghosts, and I was done.
Oh, you played Black Ops 3?
No, sorry, Black Ops 2.
Oh yeah, that was my first. I played
Blops
a little
1,
bit of
Blops 2, Modern Warfare 1 and 2, and then Ghosts, and I played the most of the
Ghosts almost
3,
killed
though.
the series for me too.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I didn't play that much Ghosts. I played the most of Modern Warfare 3 by a lot. I think I put probably somewhere between 700 and 1,000 hours into Modern Warfare 3, and then maybe a dozen hours into each of the other titles. So I was done with it. But yes, help Kev reach 1,000 subs and watch him play some. Hey, you should also play some Minecraft. I hear that's a popular game on
I
YouTube.
do not like Minecraft. Actually, my kids play Minecraft. So I have it on the Xbox One because my kids play it.
You should get a voice
I
changer.
do not like
you
it.
should get a voice changer and make your voice really high pitched and squeaky, and then be like, Hey guys, I'm gonna play some Call of Duty today.
See, the only problem with that is, there was actually, and this is actually kind of funny. There was somebody in it was a YouTube channel recently about someone who's using a voice changer and pretend they're accused of being a guy. I think it was a guy, playing off as a girl. So I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
That's creepy as shit.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, like
That's happened forever though. That happens in every online game. That happened in
no,
World
no,
of
no. This is like
Warcraft
a
back
full on YouTube channel, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
that's
But it's like Quiet Shy, who's a Warframe YouTuber that essentially his premise is that Quiet is an artificial intelligence, so it uses like Microsoft's was it Sarah or whatever, the robotic voice, and uses it to some humor because the robotic voice is very dry and humorless, so it makes jokes and it's kind of funny because it's dry.
I wish this channel was trying to be funny. I think this channel is like legit trying to make people think it's a chick.
Whereas Quiet Shy and the female voice may lend people to think it's a female, whether or not the person actually running the channel is or is not a female is ambiguous. You don't know. I don't think they've ever actually said. So, anyway, but yes, Zyphon said that you should speak normally, but claim you're 10 years old. That's how you do it, Kev. Anyway,
I won't be 10 years old either. They're gonna think I have a truck full of puppies.
Yeah, but no. In any case, though, you guys know me, Angelus de Mortiel. I'm gonna start doing some more live streaming. I'm hoping probably thinking about doing some more of that Divinity and maybe some other games. I'll hopefully be doing that somewhere around the middle or Saturday or something. Still working out the schedule for there. You guys can check me out, obviously, with the podcast here, as we've said before. If you want to see the podcast with some gameplay, some video gameplay you can watch while you're seeing it, you can go check it out over there on Kev's channel. The link is here in the unified chat. It's also in the description of the video here. And if you want to see our faces and the goofy shit that we do while we're talking, you can check it out over on my channel. Once again, the link is in the unified chat here, or on Kev's channel. If you're over there, you can grab the link from there. Once again, we're going to go ahead and sign off here for the night here, guys, since we are now 30 minutes over. This is becoming a bad habit of us. But we will catch you guys all next week on the Pixel Crashers podcast.